Welcome back to Sunday Morning Get Up. My name is Captain Lossless, and grab your tea and let's jump into it. This week, the topic is forgiveness. And not just forgiveness of other people, more mainly forgiveness of yourself. We have been in so many situations in life, so many predicaments where we may not have made the best decision for ourselves, even though we wanted to make the best decision for ourselves and we still didn't. We may have faced some resistance to make the best choice. And even though we know the best choice, we see the best choice, we oftentimes don't take it. And knowing what to do, but also not doing that can cause some friction within yourself. It can cause you to blame yourself, especially when things are not working out the way that you expected them to. And that takes some self forgiveness. It's okay to hold yourself accountable. But at some point, holding yourself accountable without a corrective action becomes self guilt. And self guilt bogs us down. It keeps us rooted in a negative perspective of ourselves. And it's not necessary. It's crazy because when it comes to self development, we go these stages of understanding that we're not to hold ourselves guilty. We're not to blame ourselves for things. But throughout the course of life, we always have these situations that can present us to end up blaming ourselves. And then we have to go and do the work again. Then we have to go this path of blaming ourselves, then coming into a realization that we are blaming ourselves, and realizing that blaming ourselves is keeping us from moving forward. This is one of the reasons why we have to be honest with ourselves. Be honest with ourselves right from the jump. As soon as we lie to ourselves, it presents an opportunity for us to look back later and realize that, I'm blaming myself. And it's like this teeter-totter. It's almost like two ends of the same spectrum. On that one end, you got what I've just described as doing something, not holding yourself, not being honest with yourself and holding yourself accountable in that honesty to the point it becomes a self-guilt trip and self-blaming and having to go and do the process later of forgiving yourself. Or right then and there, which is the opposite side of it, which is harder in the moment, is being truthful with yourself. If you didn't, and I say perform as in if you didn't do the right action that you would have liked, then you have to be honest with yourself right then and there. Because the longer you're not honest with yourself, the harder and deeper that guilt and shame or whatever emotion that you are feeling, it gets deeper. And once it gets deeper, it becomes harder and harder and harder to forgive yourself. And understand when it comes to forgiveness of yourself, even if you've done something in the past, it could be very horrible. A step to forgiving yourself is that feeling of, oh, I fucked up, or oh, I done something horrible, oh, I hurt somebody. And in that realization, you would never repeat that same action. And now you are a different person than the person you were who committed that action. That is the reason to forgive yourself. Because you're not that person that did that. It gets real trippy because no matter what, your entire life, you have been behind your eyes, and being behind your eyes feel like you're just this one person. But you're not. You have been multiple people. When it comes to being born and dying, the cycle of life that we typically look at as far as our physical beings. But that same cycle works mentally. While you have this one life that you are living, you go through cycles of life and death throughout your entire journey. From the moment you were born, you are not the person that you are now. Even in your child state, your childlike state, you made a lot of decisions that you wouldn't make now. You had a bunch of different thought processes that you don't have now. Although you were those people and you are you now, and they both existed behind those eyes within this same body, nonetheless, they are the same people. They're not. So understand that when it comes to forgiving yourself, once you have grown, developed, and saw what's need to be seen through those actions that you took, once you came into a realization that they may have been wrong and not aligned to who you are now, that is your reason. Think about that. Understand that. And although the world outside of you, people outside of you, they may judge you based on your previous actions, which will render a belief in your mind that you are that person that you were. So you should walk around with that guilt or that shame. It's not true. Forgive yourself. It's the most important thing that you can do. You could be a completely new person, like I previously said. Beautiful in mind, beautiful in actions, helping, caring, loving, but still be walking around with guilt and shame and things that you need to forgive yourself for. Take the process. Do it. Walk that journey of forgiving yourself. And their journey is going to be faced with some resistance, because this is a mental battle where it's all about you. It's all about you. It's to liberate yourself. And sometimes it's going to feel like your back is against the wall, especially when it comes to people that you have been around that knows whatever you've done that you're blaming yourself for. And some people will hold that over your head. That is part of the journey as well. It comes down to two things. Either you separate yourself from those people, or you have and develop the mental fortitude to withstand being around those people and standing your ground and not allowing other people to judge you, and not allowing, well, you can't not allow people to judge you. They're going to do it anyway. But not allowing the judgments that people place on you to be the judgments that you place on yourself. Because forgiveness is an act of freeing yourself. It is an act of letting go of the past. It is an act of clearing out your future. It is an act of being present. Because if you are holding on to something from the past, it is consequently affecting your future, because it is affecting you now. Which means all of the limitations, all of the negative perspectives that you have of yourself because of your inability to forgive yourself, is stopping you from living yourself now. It's stopping you from being completely authentic now. So anything that you are moving toward in the future, your past is affecting that. And if your past is affecting that, it's because of your present moment. Because you walk around with that guilt, shame, etc., whatever it is. Forgiveness is freedom. Forgiveness is freedom of yourself, your soul, your mind, and your life. And once you allow yourself to forgive yourself, you can start to forgive other people. Because forgiving other people, and in a sense, when I say forgive other people, it's not forgive and forget. I like to rewrite that phrase and call it process and release. So when you are processing what other people have done to you and releasing that, it comes from a place of doing it yourself, of forgiving yourself, or processing and releasing yourself from whatever you are holding yourself from. And you understand how to forgive people because people are just you, essentially, in a different body with their different mindsets. And half the things that you've done, you did the thing that you thought were the best in that situation. Might have not had the best outcome, but you were operating from a place of protection. Protecting yourself in the moment, whether it may have been protecting an ego, maybe it may have been protecting your own feelings. But nonetheless, you were doing it out of yourself. And once you come to a realization of that, that is your reason to forgive. And now, when it comes to forgiving other people, this is also a process for yourself. It's not forgiving them because they need forgiving. It's forgiving them so you don't have to walk around with those judgments and opinions of those people. So when you go and process and release, you hold people accountable for what has happened to you. You process it in the highest light. You place boundaries up. You still remain yourself. And then you release yourself from that situation. And the reason you release yourself from this situation, this goes into your energy and your ability to move at free will. If we're holding on to negative perspectives, if we're holding on to negative things that people have done to us, and every time we see those people, every time we think of those people, every time these people come in contact with us, and it's literally having us feel a certain type of way, that means that some of our energy is literally being controlled inadvertently by those people. And when it comes to life, I always say you have to play on the small wins, which means if you have goals in life, you have to literally be 100% appreciative of the small wins. Some days you have big wins. Some days you have small wins. Some days the needle only moves this much, and you have to be grateful for those days. But in that same sense, if you are being grateful for those small wins, those days where the needle moved just a little bit, in the same sense, you're being grateful for a small amount of energy. So if you're holding energy towards somebody else because of something that they have done to you, and you haven't processed and released that energy, that means even a little bit, you're allowing someone to control your energy. You're allowing someone to have a hold over you. which means that it's taken away from who you are. It's taken away from who you can be. It goes back to living in the past. It goes back to affecting your future. It goes back to affecting you in the present moment. In any of these moments, any of these times where you're not forgiving yourself, you are not processing and releasing people from the things that they have done to you, at that moment, and any moment after that, you are flowing with resistance. And flowing with resistance doesn't always come with the blueprint of telling you where that resistance is from. And living life and going through the journey of life without forgiving, it becomes blocked energy. It becomes a dis-ease of the mind and causing a dis-ease of the body, which in other words is causing a restriction in the mind and a restriction in the body. Even to the point where you may have not processed and released somebody or even yourself from a certain situation, and you will mentally feel that. And let's say that there was a physical place where this thing or something had happened. Let's say it was a person's house. Let's say it was a park or something. You feel it mentally, and your body physically wants to restrict you from moving. You feel that hesitation. And that's a clear example of the mind. The mind is connected to the body, and the body is connected to the mind. Every dis-ease of the mind is a dis-ease of the body, and every dis-ease of the body is a dis-ease of the mind. And it also serves as a physical representation of that relationship. Now, going back to my previous point of if you are not being upfront, being truthful with yourself right then and there, then when it goes time to face that restriction, oftentimes it becomes so internalized that your mind and your memory don't necessarily remember the situation that caused this restriction, that caused this friction, that caused this resistance, but it remembers the feelings behind it. It remembers to be restricted. So when you go to flow, you flow with resistance. And like I said, the more you flow with that resistance, this becomes a habit of the mind. And the universe is forever growing. The universe is forever changing. Which means if you have a growth mindset, your mind will continuously grow. If you have a fixed mindset, your mindset will be fixed, but it will continuously grow in a direction of limitation. Meaning if you are living in a state of flowing with resistance and you're not actively working toward removing that resistance, the resistance starts to grow in different areas of your life. It starts to bloom. At first, what would have been resistance in one area become a resistance in another area. Because your mind and your ego alike are creatures of habit, which means it becomes comfortable with the habits that are being repeated. And if you are flowing with resistance and you have not taken the time to remove that resistance, you have not taken the time to forgive yourself of certain situations that is causing that resistance, once those situations are out of your mind itself becomes hip to the fact of we like to resist. This is our normal state of being, which goes back in the terms of the universe flows freely. It gives freely. It doesn't compute, and your mind doesn't compute what is right or what is wrong. So it just does what it is fed. And you are the commander. You are the programmer of what is being fed. You become that filtration system through your perspectives of what is being fed into your mind and how it's being fed into your mind. Because situations outside of yourself, some of them you just simply cannot control. But what you can control is the perspective of it. What you can control is your ability to decide whether to find the silver lining in that situation or not. And oftentimes, certain situations will cause us to have a perspective of guilt, have a perspective of shame, have a perspective of worry. And all I'm saying is, if you do find yourself in that place, don't fault yourself. Don't hold on to that, because it's not necessary. If there is a reason where you felt guilt, you felt shame, analyze it. Analyze the situation from all parameters. Get a really good sense of the situation. Make the necessary changes, put up the necessary boundaries that will still allow you to live in a happy, free state. But once that situation is done, and once you have taken that route in that process, forgive yourself from it. You can tell yourself that I'm never going to do this again. I'm never going to put myself in this position again. Although it does hurt, although it does suck, although I got into it unconsciously without knowing what I was getting myself into. Have patience with yourself and be at ease. Don't judge yourself because of that situation. With all that I just said, we all find ourselves in situations like that because we wasn't always aware of all of the parameters surrounding it. And oftentimes in life, you're not always going to be aware of all the parameters. You're not going to be aware of what you are exactly getting yourself into. But keep that spirit of going out, trying new things. Because this is also the route of how you discover yourself, how you find yourself, how you find what you like, what you don't like. And sometimes you're going to run into some rocks, some hard places, which can cause you to start to judge yourself. But you don't have to. You can analyze it. You can feel those emotions. But you don't have to become attached to those emotions. Those emotions are there just to serve you as a understanding experience. Not to lock into those emotions as this is who I am because of one situation. I promise you, everything outside of yourself, everything, every physical thing, every situation, it is always changing outside of yourself. Nothing is solidified. Nothing is set in stone. Buildings, homes, and places that you have grown up with, some of them are no longer here, even though they have so many memories in that specific place. It's because things are always changing. So there is no reason whatsoever for you to hold on to guilt, shame, worry, or any of the sort of a situation that happened outside of yourself. That one situation does not determine who you are. It only served as a reason for you to get to know yourself a little bit more. Not for you to blame yourself. Not for you to hold on to that and always judge yourself and have the inability to forgive yourself because of that situation. If you look back at it, that situation is no more. The only people that are holding on to that situation is maybe you and the other people that experienced it. But you have the ability to go back in that situation and forgive yourself for it. Not only do you have the ability, you have the responsibility. Because no way ever should you be holding on to something that is not allowing you to be free. That is not allowing you to flow in the true, authentic essence of yourself. And thank you for coming to Sunday Morning Get Up and listening. Again, my name is Captain Lawsolus. I am a certified hypnotist, a holistic coach, and a Reiki master. You can go over to the Eye of Overview, find more information, join my memory course, which you can learn how to use your mind, your body, and your imagination to literally program yourself to remember everything and anything, including your soul's memory, the part of you that is truly you. Thank you, and I'll see you guys next week.